Good evening and welcome to Just the News. I'm Faye D'Souza. Thank you for joining us. This is an old school style news bulletin where we give you only the information without any of the drama. Let's get straight to it. The Supreme Court today was hearing a batch of petitions seeking special investigation into the Pegasus case when the Supreme Court observed that the allegations are serious if the media reports are correct. The two-member bench headed by Chief Justice Ramana asked the petitioners to serve a copy of their petition to the government for a response. Justice Suryakant was the second judge on the bench. The court will take up the petitions again on Tuesday, saying the central government has to be present for the hearing. The court also asked, though, why the people on the list have not filed FIRs in their cases with the police yet. Over the last few days, remember, a total of 9 petitions have been filed based on the findings made in that Pegasus case. Senior journalists N. Ram and Shashi Kumar asked for a special investigating team, SIT, headed by a sitting or a former judge, into the allegations. 2 other petitions were filed in the Supreme Court on the same case, one by CPM MP John Brittus and the other one by Advocate ML Sharma. The Editors Guild of India has also filed a petition 2 days ago asking the Supreme Court to seek details from the government on whether or not it was using Pegasus. Now, if you don't know what Pegasus is, it's unlikely you don't know, but nevertheless, 16 news organizations, including The Wire, actually put out a report over 10 countries on a list of possible targets for Pegasus spyware. Pegasus spyware is a spyware that's manufactured by a company called NSO in Israel. And in India, there were 300 numbers, of which 160 individuals were verified, including politicians, journalists, former Supreme Court judge, activists, and also a woman who had alleged sexual harassment by former Chief Justice of India, Ranjan Gogoi. These are all cases now that have been filed in the Supreme Court asking for an investigation. According to the Times of India, in a report, hockey player Vandana Kataria's family was subjected to casteist slurs after India lost to Argentina in the women's hockey semi-finals in the Tokyo Olympics. After the match was over, according to the TOI article, the family members have said that they heard crackers or fireworks go off outside their houses. When they went out of the house, they noticed that there were 2, and I'm quoting the report here, 2 upper caste men who were circling the house, bursting crackers and dancing in mock celebration because of the loss. And they hurled casteist abuses at the family. They also said that the team lost because there were too many Dalit players on the team, and that all of the sports in India should make sure that Dalit players are not taken. An FIR has been registered on the basis of that complaint. An update from Parliament at this point. Remember, we told you that Parliament had said that there were no manual scavenging deaths. Now there seems to be a different statement that has come in, but it's based on a technicality. Social Justice and Empowerment Minister Virendra Kumar has written in a written reply to Rajya Sabha, said that as many as 941 workers died when cleaning sewers and septic tanks, but there are no manual scavenging deaths. And one wonders how he actually made the difference between the two. He said that he did not have a time period during which the deaths were reported. A total of 58,098 manual scavengers have been identified across the country. The minister's statement went on to say that there is no report of death due to manual scavenging. However, we have reports of deaths of workers while being engaged in cleaning sewers and septic tanks. According to the data, Tamil Nadu reported the highest number of such deaths at 213, followed by Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Karnataka and Haryana. Manual scavenging is banned under the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers 2013 law. And while the government continued to deny that there were no deaths due to manual scavenging in Parliament, at the same day, News Minute, the online web news portal, reported that 2 Dalit men in Hyderabad were made to manually clean a manhole, died of suffocation on Tuesday night. According to the police, both were from the scheduled caste. The contractor engaged the 2 men as part of a desilting exercise and made them manually clean the flood pipe, making them enter the pipe through the manhole. The police have filed a case under the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers 2013 Act and causing death by negligence against the contractor. 1 week after the unrest at the Assam-Mizoram border that killed 6 people, Assam and Mizoram state governments have now issued a joint statement agreeing to lower tension and find lasting solutions for the dispute. 2 ministers of Assam reached Mizoram on Thursday to hold talks with the officials of Mizoram for the first time since the clashes broke out that killed 6 police men of the Assam force and injured 45 others. In the joint statement, both the governments have agreed to maintain peace at the interstate border and welcome the deployment of neutral central government forces. The states will not be allowed to send either their forest or their police forces for patrolling, enforcement, or fresh deployment in those areas that are considered now sensitive between these two states. Both governments have agreed to take necessary measures to promote and maintain peace at the border area. And Mizoram government representatives conveyed their condolences for the loss of lives on the 26th of July and wished for a speedy recovery of those injured. Moving on, 1 labourer has died and 11 others have been injured when Maoists blew up the vehicle they were travelling in at Dantewada district in Chhattisgarh today. The incident took place at 7:30 this morning. In the Malewadi police station limits. The police said that the people in the vehicle were mostly labourers. 3 of them were critically injured and rushed to the hospital. 1 of them succumbed to his injuries later. According to the Hindustan Times, the SP said, and I quote, "It was a command IED triggered by Maoists as we have found the wires. The blast caused injuries to at least 12 people, including 1 woman. The police team has been rushed to the spot. To rescue them," end quote. An update on COVID right now. India has reported 42,982 fresh COVID cases in the last 24 hours. That number is marginally higher from the 42,625 we reported yesterday. Kerala remains the hotspot, reporting 22,040 cases in 24 hours alone. The centre on Wednesday advised states and union territories to actively consider imposing restrictions on the upcoming festivals of Moharram, Onam, Ganesh Chaturthi, Janmashtami and Durga Puja and curb mass gatherings. The Kerala government has issued a new order announcing the relaxation of the ongoing COVID restrictions in the state starting today. In the new order, many establishments will be able to function for 6 days in the week from Monday to Saturday from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. This includes shops, markets, banks, offices, financial institutions, factories, industrial establishments, open tourist spaces and other establishments. According to ANI, Bengaluru has now issued prohibitory orders to contain the spread of COVID in the city, and it has implemented a night curfew in Bengaluru from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. till the 16th of August. The Karnataka government had earlier directed the BBMP commissioner and the deputy commissioners of districts to strictly monitor the COVID situation in their respective jurisdictions and impose further curbs if required. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar on Wednesday said schools for classes 9 and 10 will reopen on the 7th of August. Classes 1 to 8 will reopen on the 16th of August. Bihar Chief Minister also gave a go-ahead for coaching institutions to operate at 50% attendance. An update from the world of business and economy. The central government has made a massive announcement today. The central government has moved to end retrospective tax by amending the income tax law. Now, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman introduced the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill 2021 in Lok Sabha. It seeks to withdraw tax demands made in indirect transfer of Indian assets prior to 2012. So basically, retrospective tax is when the government basically makes a law, changes the way taxation is done, retrospectively. So anything you've done in the past also comes under now this taxation. You have to pay that up now. This had happened with 2 companies, specifically Kane Energy and Vodafone Group UK. 2 of their deals came under the tax laws retrospectively. This was done in the previous government, in the UPA government, and it had actually resulted in a massive problem for both of these companies. Both firms won international arbitrations against these taxes on them, but the Indian government had not budged until now. The government has also proposed to refund the amount paid in these cases without any interest. The tax raised on indirect transfer of Indian assets before May 2012 will be, and I quote, nullified on fulfillment of specific conditions. This is good news for these companies, and it's being cheered largely by the business community. News now coming in from across the world. According to Reuters, WHO is calling for a moratorium or a pause or a delay on booster shots that many countries are giving right now, in benefit and interest of those who are unvaccinated. Now, this comes after several countries have started providing booster shots because they believe that there's a need right now, since the effect of the vaccine is starting to wane after a few months. But at the same time, there are many countries in the world where the gap is really large and people have not received a single dose at all. WHO's director has said the purpose of the move is to ensure that at least 10% of the world's population of every country is vaccinated. He went on to say, and I quote, "I understand the concern of all governments to protect their people from the Delta variant, but we cannot accept countries that have already used up most of the global supply of vaccines using up even more of it for booster shots," end quote. Thousands of people have been forced to evacuate as Northern California's largest wildfire continues to spread. The US is currently fighting 96 active wildfires that have taken over nearly 2 million acres of land. Wildfires in the US are being fueled apparently by extreme drought, above normal temperatures, and low humidity. Remember, we've been bringing you news of Turkey and Greece that have been battling terrible fires and also horrible temperatures. Greece is recording temperatures of over 40 degrees Celsius, which is unheard of for a country like Greece, largely being attributed to climate change, these extreme weather conditions. An update from the world of sports, and India's campaign at the Olympics has some very good news. In fact, Indian men opened their account of medals today. Remember, up till now, all of our medal winners have been women. Today, the Indian men's hockey team defeated Germany 5-4 for the bronze medal at the Tokyo Olympics to win their first ever Olympic medal in 41 years. Now, Simranjeet Singh, Hardik Singh, Harmanpreet Singh and Rupindra Pal Singh were the goal getters for India. The Indian scoreboard was singing. It's India's third hockey bronze medal in history in the Olympics. Remember, the other two came in 1968 Mexico City and 1972 Munich Games. Also, India's 23-year-old wrestler Ravi Dahiya bagged the silver medal after he lost to his Russian competitor in the final of the men's 57 kg freestyle event at the Tokyo Olympics. With this, he's become the second Indian wrestler to win a silver medal at the Olympics after Sushil Kumar in 2012. 22-year-old wrestler Deepak Punia lost his bronze medal match to his San Marino's competitor in the men's freestyle 86 kg event at the Tokyo Olympics. 26-year-old wrestler Vinesh Phogat lost the quarterfinals of the women's 53 kg event to Belarus. Meanwhile, 20-year-old Anshu Malik failed to reach the bronze medal match of the women's 57 kg freestyle round earlier today. And one piece of positive news, the Border Roads Organization in India has constructed the world's highest road in eastern Ladakh at an altitude of 19,300 feet. The road has been constructed at an altitude higher than Mount Everest's base camps. To put this into perspective, when a large commercial aircraft flies at 30,000 feet, which is where the highest it goes, this road's altitude is more than half of that. The infrastructure development is extremely challenging because regularly the temperature falls to below minus 40 degrees and there's about 50% of the oxygen that we're used to at sea level. But the central government has said the Border Roads Organization has achieved this feat with grit and resilience of its personnel who work in treacherous terrain and extreme weather conditions, end quote. That brings us really to the end of this bulletin. Thank you so much for listening and for tuning in, and for always giving us your encouragement. It's really nice to read your comments at the end of the bulletin. If you're on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share it with friends and family. Also, if you leave a comment on the YouTube video, it helps us in the algorithm and it pushes the video up. Here's your quiz question for the day. The Indian men's hockey team defeated Germany to win the bronze medal at the Olympics. Who scored the goals that India scored? Who were the goal scorers of that match? Leave us those answers in the comment section. Thank you so much for listening. Tune in tomorrow for another news update. Good night.